But seriously, folks, the late night shows are supposed to be comedy shows, and when they were in the hands of people like Jay Leno and Johnny Carson, they indeed were, and these men understood that, yeah, you may or may not have a political interest in something, but that's not important. What's really important is that people need to be entertained. They want to tune in. They want to be made to laugh, even though other things might be a little sad. Well, Stephen Colbert was nothing more than a deep state propagandist. He spent years pretending to be a late night comedian, and they're going to cancel his show. The truth is, I wonder how stupid the people are at CBS. They continued to fund this guy. I guess maybe they thought they were going to turn some votes toward Cammie, but who knows why they continue to do this. But we now know that not only was it a comic wasteland, but it was costing, did you hear that right? It was costing CBS more than $40 million a year to keep that show on the air. It wasn't making any money. They weren't selling enough advertisements to begin to cover the cost of actually producing the show. So anyway, Stephen Colbert said, I'm not being replaced. This is just all going away. What he should have said is, the truth is, I've been sucking these people dry for a long time, and they're finally going to fire me. Well, not a moment too soon, I guess. But I mean, seriously, it's been years this show has been costing them money to run. And I guess they thought that maybe it was going to move the votes. I just don't know. But Colbert didn't really function as an entertainer. He was nothing more than a deep state propagandist. Grating and talentless late night host, Colbert had spent years obsessively ranting against America's president, Donald John Trump. Now, the truth is, as I speak to you here in late July of 2025, the truth is that Donald Trump's poll numbers are now the highest they have ever been. Yes, apparently we did vote for this. Apparently we wanted a president who would enforce the laws. And he proved that we didn't need new laws. We didn't need new border and immigration laws. All we needed to do was enforce the laws that we have. And things like Alcatraz down in Florida. I didn't create the name, but I read it somewhere and I thought it was brilliant. Yeah, the left is just going berserk, but the truth is, you and I love it. We think it's great. And his poll numbers continue to rise because we are deporting people that broke into our country. I mean, think about it. Your house, somebody breaks into your bathroom window, and even if they came in with a silver spoon, you don't care because they probably stole that silver spoon from someone else. So anyway, they break in through your bathroom window, and then they come in and they say, you know what? We're going to kind of take over here, but we'll let you live here as long as you're polite. And, of course, you have to learn to speak our language as well. There's a lot of Americans that just didn't find that acceptable. There's a lot of Americans that said, you know, I was really ticked off when I went down to enroll my child in the local school in my home area and found out that I couldn't put my child in the public school because it had been filled up with people from other countries that don't speak our language. And, of course, it's probably no surprise for you, but 65% of the people that were coming across our southern border were OTMs, other than Mexican. 65%. A huge number of them were Chinese men of military age. That I know of right now, we've got more than 10,000 Chinese foot soldiers here in America. Now, the good news is a lot of them are living the American life, and they're starting to like it over here, and if they were to be activated by China, they just might not show up for work. But nonetheless, we've got Chinese, we've got Afghanis, we've got Pakistanis, we've got Moroccans. These are people that not only don't speak the language, but they didn't come here to clean your toilets or to work in your restaurants or wash your plates. No, they came here for other reasons. So anyway, Donald Trump, upon hearing of the firing of Stephen Colbert, he had a couple of things to say. First of all, Colbert, by the way, criticized CBS for giving Donald Trump $16 million because they had engaged in deceptive editing of the Cammie Harris alleged interview. Trump, on the other hand, said, I absolutely love it that Colbert got fired because, let's face it, his talent rating was even lower than his TV ratings. In sum, the fact that Colbert's cancellations prompted such commentary from political figures confirmed the host's status as a propagandist. Had he chosen to function as an entertainer, and I've been following Stephen Colbert for a number of years, and I never have thought he was funny, but he could have made CBS money, but instead he was just costing them $40 million a year to run that show. So, Donald Trump's poll numbers are surging. They are in the high 80s and low 90s now. Even Quinnipiac, a notorious Marxist, leftist, anti-American college poll, finds Donald Trump's numbers are in the high 80s. Ladies and gentlemen, we have never had a president more popular, and I should mention to you that back in 2020, he was the most popular president in American history. And yet somehow he lost to a guy who was campaigning from his basement and got 81 million votes. How about that? Now this. Of course, I know that none of you ever watch The View. I certainly don't. But Sunni Hosten, the lawyer on The View, I guess she's perhaps the only one that actually has a college indoctrination degree, but I guess she's on there because it pays better. But she seems to have conveniently forgotten her past statements have been recorded and that they're not going away. She thought if there was any client list, it probably shouldn't be released. It might implicate innocent people. Well, she also said we shouldn't be repeating those names. Of course, that was when Joseph Robinette Biden was allegedly in charge. Of course, we know that he was incapable of being in charge of anything, including what color socks he wore or what kind of oatmeal he had in the morning. But nonetheless, the people behind him, the ones who were running the auto pen, were in charge. And I guess she thought that that gave her a certain amount of protection. But Donald Trump is saying this is a non-controversy. But anyway, here's what she had to say. Well, let's just watch that video now.
People were dying for this information. There was some sort of list that everybody thought was going to come out, and who's on the list. What's important for us to note is we shouldn't be repeating names that are on the list, because just because your name has not on the list, but in the documents, just because your name is on the documents doesn't mean that you have done anything criminally irresponsible or illegal or civilly irresponsible.
Or that you were a client.
Or that you were a client. These documents, as I read them, only reflect Epstein's sexual assaults of women and his sexual behavior. So I think that...
And Ghislaine also?
And Ghislaine. And so being named in this suit does not equate to being accused of wrongdoing. And I think that is extremely important, because conspiracy theorists seem to not understand or enjoy facts.
Yes.
These are the facts.
There is a list. Trump's name is on the logs, the passenger logs of Epstein's aircraft at least 7 times. That's already been made public. I mean, of course, Trump is denying any and all allegations, but all of that information is out there. Why not just put it to rest and say, release the list?
Release the list. Well, now I guess she's a conspiracy theorist. She wants to get it all out there. So anyway, Donald Trump has, of course, asked that all the grand jury testimony be released. And, of course, I think there's way more than that stuff out there. But if Donald Trump was on any of these lists in any significant way, I promise you that the left would have already released that information, because they would have stopped at nothing to stop Donald Trump. We saw that. They got Robert Mueller. Even though he was drunk out of his mind most of the time, they had him put his name on a report. And, of course, that report finally absolved Donald Trump of any wrongdoing. But nonetheless, they don't quit. So now that the client list has to be released, Democrats are embracing politics for the situation for a change. And this is not going to go away because of the severity of what may be in those files. As you've heard me say before, I'm certain there's some absolutely devastating stuff in there. And that when the American people see it, well, it's probably going to change everything. But nonetheless, we want Donald Trump to do the right thing. We love the fact that his approval numbers are the highest ever. But we want to see Donald Trump's numbers go even higher, and we're appreciative of what he has done. And finally, our very own Mark Cuban out of Dallas. He has come uncharacteristically close to making a sound political observation. On the July 13th episode of the Pod Save America podcast, Cuban identified Democrats as one-note style. They say their Trump sucks messaging is the reason they fail to persuade voters. This would have made sense if Cuban himself had not demonstrated the real reason less than 30 minutes earlier. Cuban said, "We picked the wrong pressure points. It's just Trump sucks. That's the underlying thought of everything that Democrats do." Well, this sounds like another way of saying the Democrats' obsession with Trump has left them with nothing to offer voters. That's not the way to win, Cuban said. It's just because it's not about Trump. It's the people of the United States and what's good for them. It seems like Cuban may have figured out the problem. But recall, for instance, near the end of the 2024 campaign when Mark Cuban insulted all of the women who supported Trump. Well, some of those women made Cuban's comments an issue in the campaign's closing days. The bigger problem, however, is that Cuban simply had it wrong in his analysis of what motivates the modern Democrat. In recent years, has anyone actually met a Democrat who wants to think, who wants to engage or have a conversation? No, they just call you a racist and walk off. That is the modern Democrat. To that end, they worship tolerance to the point of insanity, and that prevents them from denouncing the most obvious injustices, such as open borders and men pretending to be women and then beating them up in sports. In one case, killing her. Another defining factor is affluence. In the 2024 election, America's wealthiest counties voted overwhelmingly for Cammie. Thus, the modern Democrats' condensation, authoritarianism, and open disregard for the interest of their less fortunate neighbors comes from the same place it originates in every society, those who enjoy privilege. The truth is this: Donald Trump's approval numbers are higher than ever. And you may want to make a point about one thing or another, but when you bash the guy that everyone loves, they're not going to love you. The truth is, Mark Cuban may be rich, but he doesn't seem to be that smart. See you tomorrow. You have a choice, and you chose Freedom 1300.